This episode of the PC Perspective Podcast is brought to you by Zumper, the quick and easy way to find your next apartment or home rental. With 1 million apartments and real-time updates, you'll be the first to know when a new apartment hits the rental market. And with their one-click Experian-powered application feature, you can lock down your new home right now from your phone before it's gone. To try Zumper today, go to zumper.com/PCP. Hey everybody, welcome to the PC Perspective Podcast. This is episode 368, being recorded on September 23rd, 2015. I'm Ryan Shrout.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
And I'm Morry Titleman.
I definitely almost said 328th episode. For some reason, I had the 8 at the
You're
end.
about 40 behind.
Pretty much exactly 40 behind. Welcome to the show, everybody. Alan's not here. I've got all this extra space. Look at all this room for activities.
Room to breathe?
That I have here. Oh, man. Oh, yeah, this is good.
You can really stretch out and, put your drink.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
vessel
You're right. I could just do like
anywhere.
this. I could just put it right there, and it won't even matter. It doesn't even matter. I even put his chair away. Just moved it out. He's practically not even part of our life anymore.
Why don't you get Cardboard Orion to help you host the show?
He is too tall, and he doesn't have a good he doesn't bend at the knees to like sit down correctly. If he does bend at the knees, he won't unbend at the knees, which could be a problem as well. So anyway, let's get into the show. This is the first time you've joined us. Welcome. PC Perspective is the name of our website where we post reviews of computer stuff. It's at pcper.com. We do record this podcast live on Wednesday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific at pcper.com/live. And if you want to partake in that, maybe you need a little gentle reminder, you can go to pcper.com/subscribe. And if you sign up for that, you'll be on a little mailing list that we send out notifications usually an hour to 2 hours before the podcast begins. Tell you, hey, this is what we're going to talk about today, and any other live events that we may host in the not too distant future as well. So pcper.com/subscribe for that. But in any event, let's get into the content for this week. We do have Morry with us, who's filling in for Alan. And I thought it was timely. He did post a review this week of kind of a comparison or roundup of CPU water blocks, which is interesting. It's a topic that's not often covered either here or really anywhere in most kind of major mainstream online publications. So I thought it was an interesting thing to look at. Morry, it looks like you've got 5 different models here. I'm not going to ask you to kind of just remember all of them, but I am curious. What are all of the water blocks?
Okay, so basically what I did is I had a bunch of water blocks sitting around that I wasn't using. Well, some of them I wasn't using, some of them I do use. And I just thought some readers had said this in previous water cooling reviews and all-in-one cooler reviews. And it was also an idea I was kicking around that, how does different water blocks from different series perform under the same load? Because usually when we do our reviews, we use review units. We don't necessarily use, other things. So the 5 water blocks that were tested were 2 coolants, the CPU 360, which is discontinued right now, and the CPU 380i, the SwiftTech Apogee HD and the Apogee XL, and the XSPC Raystorm. Those were basically the water blocks I either had here that I bought myself or that I received as review samples from manufacturers, which is why so several people asked us about the EK. That's why we don't have the EK or the bits power or any of the other blocks. So the interesting thing with before I get into that, as far as the blocks go, there's 2 different ways that manufacturers build blocks. Right, they build them with microchannels or they build them with pins. Okay, the microchannels means that the water is injected over microchannels and basically squirts out through those microchannels and then goes out of the block. Where the pins, it's basically a straight pass through, and the pins are like a forest, a copper forest, so to say, and the pins just go right through the forest and out the block. And you can see the designs right here. The 2 SwiftTech, the 2 that use the pins, The Raystorm and the 2 coolants use microchannel. Okay.
Gotcha.
And yeah, you can kind of see it there in that picture. That's a microchannel. That's the Raystorm right there, the XSPC, and basically the water shoots horizontally over the microchannels and then goes top to bottom, and then it's collected in the outlet. So
okay.
We tested this. I tested this against an X99 board using our standard speeds, stock and overclocked. Mainly because the X99 is a really good platform to test with. It is a bigger core, so the heat gets spread out, and we on our review sample on the review chip we use, we get really good speeds on. I think it's somewhere between 4.5 and 4.7 is what we get. So it generates quite a bit of heat. So it is a real nice platform to test with, and just because we tested on the X99 with the Haswell-E doesn't mean that these results are not applicable to your Haswell or to your Skylake. Skylake is going to run a little cooler. Haswell, which is the Z97, will probably run maybe a little hotter, but maybe on par. Because you got to remember with the Skylake and the Haswell, they are smaller dies and a smaller heat spreader than the Haswell-E. Okay.
Gotcha.
As far as the results go, it was very interesting what we saw. It wasn't outside expectations once I kind of thought about it and actually got with Alan on it as well. That the blocks, the best performing blocks were the ones with the microchannels. The ones with the micro pins did not perform as well. You'd think that the micro pins may perform better because the micro pins actually have more surface area than the microchannels.
Right.
But the way that the blocks are constructed, the water just isn't. It's the flow is basically encouraged to go through the center of the block, whereas with the microchannels, it's actually squeezed through the microchannels to the outside of the block, so you actually get better coverage overall over the heat spreader and over the die. Okay, so the micro pins actually could lead to hot spots on the heat spreader and on the die, as opposed to the microchannel, which you're not going to get those hot spots as much.
Well, it's also kind of turbulence versus laminar flow. When you have all the pins and the water's going through there and it's creating turbulence, you probably actually get small vacuum pockets behind the pins against on the far side of the water flow. So you've got the water flowing this way, and it hits a pin, it swirls around and creates turbulence, and you probably got that vacuum. No, there's no heat transfer, but with the just the veins, you probably have a more laminar flow, fewer bubble formation and vacuum and stuff like that.
That is true. That's something that Alan had brought up also. I had kind of alluded to that as well, but kind of Alan put the science behind it. The turbulence thing, though, with water coolers and air coolers, there is some, kind of back and forth discussion on that on some of the hardcore enthusiast forums. That you want turbulence, but you don't want so much turbulence because turbulence will break up the water. The surface of the water, if the water stays as a unit, because water in a liquid form, even though in ice form, it's solid. Liquid form is not solid. Well, of course, it's liquid, but it tends to have surface cohesion. You want some amount of turbulence because it does break up the surface cohesion, and breaking up the surface cohesion of the water actually aids in heat transfer. But as Josh was saying, if you get too much turbulence, it starts working the other way, where you get the laminar flow and the vacuum spots and the heat spots. The interesting thing with the microchannel designs is that the oldest block that I tested performed the best. The CPU 360 Coolants block was actually the best performer by 2 to 3C, if not more than that. And it's just I believe that it's the way that the block was constructed, because the way that the 360 is constructed, the water is encouraged to go out both sides, and then it joins up with the inlet that's actually in the middle of the die. So so the water kind of shoots in, squirts out, and then kind of comes back like that and comes back out. Okay, on the 380 instead, the actual outlet is actually in line with one of the ends of the microchannel, so that the other side of the microchannel, the flow actually has to go faster to catch up with the flow going right out to the outlet. So the performance, of course, suffers because of that. The Raystorm, the XSPC it didn't perform as good as either coolants, but it performed significantly better than either of the SwiftTech blocks. Actually, its performance kind of fell in between the SwiftTech and the coolants blocks. So, I had a couple comments. It said something about the price of the blocks. These blocks are expensive. They are not, these are not in any way entry level water cooling devices. These are meant for water cooling enthusiasts who, like me, I do water cooling not just, because of the temperatures, but, sort of because of temperatures, but, it's something I enjoy doing.
Sure.
It's not, yes, you could get on par temps with a better all-in-one cooler, such as the Corsair H100, the H100i, or the newer HX or HG series. I forget what they are, or some others. But it is a hobbyist thing. So
yeah, I think that's fair. It's disappointing that the best performer is not for sale anymore. But I guess
I know it's surprising that Coolant's changed up the design of it. Now, one thing that someone did mention is that with the Coolant's 380i, there is some, again, another site did testing where they actually rotated the block 90 degrees and actually got better performance, like by a couple degrees. So I did not try that. The way that I had the blocks oriented was that the microchannels were parallel to the die. So,
right.
Or no, wait, no. Were they parallel to parallel? No, wait. I'm sorry. I think that they actually I oriented them so they were perpendicular to the die, not parallel. Sorry, I'm trying to think back. But because that would give the best coverage. So.
You still believe that water cooling like this is something that you have to want to do? I think all of us would agree. Even Alan would agree if he were here. This is something you have to want to do. There's not like a deep technical need to do it anymore, especially if you consider, like you were talking about, the self-contained water coolers that are out there that are higher performance than we had expected, and also just some of the limited headroom that you get on modern graphics cards and processors in terms of overclocking. Like, you can really get most of the headroom out of them with high-quality air coolers. You agree?
I will give you a qualified yes on that. The qualification comes in that with video cards especially, they get really hot. And I've run both air-cooled video cards and water-cooled video cards. The modern air coolers, no matter what is ACX20 or whatever other the manufacturers are, they will get loud if you're running a video card full bore, you're going to overclock the video card. Mm-hmm. That fan will get loud over time. It may get loud and then stop being loud, after you finish playing or whatever, but it will get loud.
Right.
So what water cooling buys you in that, and this is also kind of outside the all-in-one. If you're going to do a water cooling loop where you have where you're cooling your CPU and video cards, water cooling will actually reduce your GPU temps down to a manageable 50C under load, even overclocked, because the die size of the GPU is much bigger than that of a CPU, so you get much more cooling area and much more optimized cooling out of that. So it's able to cool it a lot more efficiently, even in line with an overclocked, very hot CPU core. That GPU will not go very hot.
Gotcha. Compared
to what it goes under air cooled. So that's the only caveat.
Interesting stuff. Check out Morry's article on PCPro.com if you want a little bit more detail. Lots of good photos of those different water blocks and the configuration. Let's move on to another story that went up this week. Ken posted. What? Who? Never heard of the guy.
Who's Ken?
I've never met the guy before.
Is that a pseudonym?
It is. I ghost write under the name Ken Addison.
Well, he's got to get into CES somehow, right?
Right. He's got to have name on articles at some point.
Byline.
So this is choosing a ThinkPad something for everyone. And this is basically a result of us having an office full of ThinkPad laptops that Lenovo sends us all the time. They usually send us most of their lineup each year. And we had all these Broadwell machines that we hadn't done reviews of yet. We're like, okay, look, it's getting too late to do a full review. Skylake's going to be here in the not too distant future. What can we do to kind of demonstrate the capabilities of these machines? Without overly focusing on the componentry inside, because it is going to change in the next handful of months. So we came up with this idea to just kind of like demonstrate the different Lenovos we had here, like form factor, size, battery size, cost, and kind of differentiate that way. The interesting thing is, so we had the T450S, which is a 14-inch Ultrabook. I guess still technically an Ultrabook, right, Ken? 14-inch machine. This is the largest machine we had. And then we had the X250, which looks identical to that, except it's a little bit smaller. You got a 95% keyboard. It's a 12-inch screen instead of a 14-inch screen. Then we had the X1 Carbon. That's a 14-inch as well, Ken, or is that a 13?
The X1 is 14.
X1 is 14 as well, 14-inch screen, but it's a much thinner, sleeker design. And then we had the ThinkPad Helix, which is a 2-in-1. It's a tablet with a kind of a dock, and it's using the Core M processor, whereas the other ones were using Core i5 5300U, all basically the same Broadwell-based part. What's interesting is all four of these laptops had the same price pretty much, right? Like if I just said $1,250, you were probably within $50 of any of those at that configuration that we had, which tells you that, okay, pricing is not really the determining factor here. What is? And it's really form factor and battery life. Those are really the differences you get. When you get to the Helix, you talk a little bit about performance, obviously. They all have good keyboards. They all have good trackpads. They all have touch screens. They all have what's the nub in the middle? Track point. They all have decent amount of connectivity, but obviously it goes down the thinner you have the machine. I think the T450 has, or the X250 has one less USB 3.0 port than the T450S. T450S has this great capability of having a 95 watt-hour combined battery. Right, so you can see here in this picture, you've got this little thing, this kind of wart coming out the bottom here, this little growth, if you will. That is the large 6-cell 72 watt-hour battery that gets added to the internal non-removable 23 watt-hour battery for a total of 95. That's obviously an option. Although I think one of the machines we were looking at the time, it was like a $5 special to just add that battery to it. But 95 watt hours of battery life is going to get you all day battery life, probably beyond that, even with pretty normal usage. The X250, the 12-inch, offered the same battery configuration as well. So you could get the same 95 watt configuration, just a little bit smaller form factor. You can see here the comparison in terms of footprint. I would say thickness-wise, they're about the same, though, weren't they, Ken? Maybe
yeah.
Pretty close. Mm-hmm. T450S might have been tiny bit different there. But still, the huge battery life is the advantage there. And that's really why I used the X200 series forever. 200, 201, 230. I use those as my everyday machines and travel machines for many, many years. The X1 Carbon was launched a few years ago. This is Lenovo's, hey, we're going to make a sexy Ultrabook, but still have the capabilities of a ThinkPad. Still get the good keyboard and trackpad and all that. And you do get a thinner design. It has less connectivity, fewer USB ports, that type of stuff. But you also lose, I think the most important thing for me at least, is that you lose a lot of battery life, right? There's no expandable battery. It's a 50 watt-hour battery in there. So still pretty good compared to a lot of machines. I think the XPS 13 has a 53 watt-hour battery, something like that. So it's very close. But compared to the T450 or the X250, like you can see why it's a drop, right? If you're used to something with a 90 watt-hour battery, dropping to 50 is going to be a pretty noticeable difference. But it is a nice looking, feeling, lighter, sexier design, if that's what you are looking for. And then finally we have the Helix, which is a 2-in-1. It's a tablet. It comes with a there's a couple of different docks. The one that we have here is the most expensive dock. I think they call that the Ultrabook Pro dock. It has a battery in it, so you have a battery internal on the tablet, and you have a battery on the dock. The dock comes with an active stylus. to me a little bit of a surprise. This is actually apparently a very, very popular model in the business enterprise market, right? They want the idea of a tablet and the Ultrabook and the pen, the stylus, and they can get all the kind of V Pro and other stuff that people apparently want in business and enterprise series laptops if they go with the ThinkPad line. Now, obviously, you sacrifice on performance there. It is Core M rather than Core i5. This model has 4 gigs of memory instead of the other ones had 8. But it does have a combined 70 watt-hour battery, so you should get pretty competitive battery life with even the bigger T450 and X250 because of the lower end, lower performance, lower power consumption hardware inside that machine. So there's other ThinkPads out there. What did we miss, Ken? We missed the Yoga. The ThinkPad Yoga.
Yeah, the W series, which
is more
end,
workstation class as well. But we wanted to take away here is that even though this is Broadwell, and I would probably encourage people to wait for Skylake before buying a laptop if they're looking for something new. Form factors and design decisions aren't going to change unless something dramatic and amazing happens. They're still going to offer all of these machines with Skylake, right? So going in knowing what the form factor differences are, what the capability differences are, will help you make a more informed decision. So that's something cool. It's a cool story we can only do when we have kind of everything all in front of us at one time. We have a lot of experience with Lenovo laptops. They're very up front with like, here, go try this one, try this one, try this one, try this one, because they know we can make a better decision that way too. Any thoughts, Ken?
Everyone should send us every laptop they make.
Every company should send us every laptop. Otherwise, we can't make a completely informed decision. Yeah. I agree. Like we get the Lenovo ThinkPads, we get the IdeaPads a lot. We turn down a lot of that type of stuff though, because a lot of them are so similar. The Y series, the gaming notebooks, all that type of stuff. So,
hey Ryan.
Yeah.
Oh, did any of them have USB 3.1 ports on them? Gen 2 USB 3.1 on them?
No. These are all Broadwell machines. They're all a little bit older, so they don't have that yet. We may see some of that in Skylake. Honestly, don't know.
You will see some of that in Skylake.
We will see some of that in Skylake.
Wink.
Yeah, Ken. Remember Ken went to China to visit Lenovo?
Yes.
That guy. I still don't know who he is, but he went to China. He came back. He told me there were going to be laptops. I don't know. Let's talk about other notebook stuff here. This one, slightly different in scale, slightly different in audience. This is the ultimate kind of gaming notebook stuff, right? So NVIDIA invited us up to New York City. They said, we want to show you some mobile stuff. And I was like, oh, Jesus. Oh, man, really? This stuff again? It's like, no, trust me, it's going to be really cool. It's like, what? I mean, GTX 980M and SLI, like, what are you going to show me? So we went up there, and they actually have gaming notebooks that will be shipping next month that include a full GTX 980 platform, graphics card, GPU, whatever you want to call it, in a mobile machine. This is not a cut-down GPU. It's still 2048 CUDA cores. I'm going to bring up the specs here. Here they are. Still 2048 CUDA cores. Has the same rated base clock of 1126 megahertz, 128 texture units, 64 ROP units, 4 gigs of memory, 7 gigahertz memory clock, 256-bit memory bus, 224 gigabytes per second of memory bandwidth, and a 4.61 teraflop peak compute rating. Right? If you compare those two columns on the left, the GPU, GTX 980 mobile, GTX 980 desktop, they're identical. If you look at the GTX 980M, which was the previous highest end part, it was a Maxwell-based part, but only had 1,536 CUDA cores, about 100 megahertz lower clock speed, fewer texture units, and just as importantly, if not more, is the data rate on the memory was only 5 gigahertz instead of 7 gigahertz. So you have a pretty big difference there. The TDP of the GTX 980M was 100 watts, and they didn't give us a specific on the new version. It's not a new version, but so basically what they did was they took a GTX 980 and they bend them for those that can run at lower voltages effectively and reliably and stable. And then they improved kind of the componentry. They're using 4 and 8 phase designs on the GPU for power delivery, and they're basically able to, I think, bring that TDP down to about 150 watts, because the desktop reference card is 165 watts. Maybe able to get 15 watts less out of it to get to 150 watts, which is also the rated maximum of the MXM module specification. So that kind of all makes sense. The end result, though, is a mobile gaming platform that really has no sacrifices, right? The model that we got to play around with some of our demos on had a desktop Core i7 6700K processor in it, a desktop Skylake 6700K, and now a desktop GTX 980 GPU. I don't know what else you can ask for really in a mobile machine. It wasn't thin, it wasn't light, it wasn't quiet. Yeah. I mean, they're big, heavy machines, but it's not like they weigh 30 pounds or something like that. They're going to weigh 10 pounds, probably, right? So I don't think you're going to see a huge difference in kind of what the builds are for the 980M that you'll have for this 980. Even though you have 50 watts additional power to kind of have to deal with in that regard.
We saw like the MSI GT72, which
right.
looked like the same chassis.
Yeah, the MSI GT72, which is a machine we've seen here several times, kind of as they move from Haswell to Broadwell to other. They'll have a Skylake version as well. That one we saw last. I think we had it with a 970M in it, and they offered it with a 980M, and now they're going to offer that same design with a GTX 980 full in it. Which, by the way, just to say, is a dumb naming scheme. Just calling it a GTX 980 when there already existed a GTX 980M. It's just kind of confusing for people. They're going to allow overclocking on this. They're going to unlock GPU offset and memory offset. You will not be able to do memory, you're not be able to do voltage adjustments, and you can't do power target adjustments. That's kind of because they are being a little bit more particular, because each OEM's cooling design is going to be a little bit different for the GPU. But there are, they have rated minimums. They have to meet that base clock at least to be sold as a GTX 980. But from what we were told by NVIDIA, a lot of vendors are going to sell above that. Take a laptop like the GT80 from MSI that has a mechanical keyboard in it and an 18-inch screen. It'll have, two GTX 980s inside that chassis, and the power brick has got to be enormous on that.
You just get an ATX power supply.
It's just an ATX power supply.
You just turn it around.
Just put that in there. I'm okay with that. So, I mean, other than just kind of improving your frame rates and doing interesting things, right? Like if you're limited to a 1080p screen, which a lot of them are, not all of them. Some of them are 4K, some of them are 25 by 14. But 1080p screen, it's kind of like, well, do you really need a GTX 980 to push 1080p if that's what you're going to do?
75 hertz.
75 hertz, like the G-Sync screens. So you're kind of pegging that stuff out. And I would say...
But you'll have HDMI or 4K out on HDMI.
You will.
So at least then you'll be using it. And you can stop bitching about the battery, because I doubt you're dragging that 4K monitor around with you too.
No, you're definitely not. You can do, we got to play Grand Theft Auto 5 in surround, 3 1080p monitors all hooked up to the same laptop, 2 through DisplayPort, 1 through HDMI, and it ran great. It wasn't maxed out quality settings, because you couldn't do that on the desktop part either, or a desktop system, but it was pretty damn good and very smooth and great frame rates. And then we also, we didn't see the demo of it. They didn't have them in New York, but this is also the first mobile GPU, the first mobile gaming systems that beat the requirements for the Oculus Rift virtual reality systems, right? They claim that you need a GTX 970 or higher in order to meet, the 90 frames per second at that resolution. What is it? I forget what it is now, but whatever resolution the Oculus runs at, right? They want you to get 90 FPS. GTX 970 is recommended for it. This is the first mobile system with the GTX 980 that will be able to meet and beat that. So now you'll be able to, take that on the go. Developers will love it. People who work shows will love it. But if you want to do virtual reality gaming, you want to do VR stuff, and you like the convenience of having a portable, I don't want to say mobile, but a portable gaming platform in a notebook form factor, you'll be able to do that now. So, any thoughts on this? Like, I just thought it was incredibly interesting how they did it. Just kind of tweaking performance and power consumption a little bit.
Sounds pretty familiar, huh?
Yeah, I did. I did ask them when they were going to put that on a small form factor PCB and call it, what did we like, Titan Nano or GTX 980 Nano or 980 Mini or something like that, and they kind of poo-pooed the idea and said, "Oh, nobody wants that form factor," blah blah blah, which is a pretty stupid comment just across the board. Since you have partners that make cards in that form factor, they just have to use a GTX 970 instead. But you'll have options from Clevo, MSI, ASUS, and Aorus. How do we say that? Aorus?
I think that's right.
Arius?
No, there's no I in it. It's Aorus, Aorus, which is a Gigabit brand. They had like the thinnest version of it using the GTX 980.
It's also like an 18-inch laptop, so it can be pretty
It's big, yeah. And then the Clevos, even if you don't know who Clevo is, you don't buy a Clevo laptop, know that they sell to and build for, all the other guys that sell machines like, who am I thinking of, like Main Gear or Alienware, or those guys that are, I guess not Alienware anymore, but
Origin,
and those guys that sell machines. Those are the ones you're going to get there, and it looked pretty cool, guys. Like not literally cool, but it looked pretty awesome. There's going to be fan noise to consider. There's going to be heat issues. Skin temperatures are maybe a concern. Don't put this on your legs for an extended gaming period. Put it on a desk like it's supposed to be. Use a big laptop cooler that props it up and all that stuff, and has a big fan on it that keeps things running. And I think it'll be awesome. Pricing. Actually, I got this email just here, and actually, if we switch to this, I'll just show you. This is the MSI GT72. Looks very familiar. Announcing it with the GTX 980. It will be $500 more.
That's a lot of money.
Than the version with the GTX 980M.
Yep.
That's a lot of money more.
That's a lot of more monies. It is a lot of more monies.
Hey, Ryan.
Yes, sir.
That ASUS, the ASUS laptop with that weird water coolant bump thing on it, was that one of the GTX 990?
It will be, yes. It will be, yeah. Which obviously, it makes sense, right? When they announced that, they said an unannounced GeForce GTX GPU. And I was like, okay. I really had no idea what it was going to be. But $500 is a lot to upsell you to a GTX 980. You're getting about 30 to 40% more performance, I'm guessing, just looking at specifications and stuff. So you have to be a guy that just wants the best thing. Similar to a 980 Ti or a Titan X or something like that. You just have to be able to. You have to want to pay. You have to be able to pay, but you also have to want to pay more to just have the best stuff. Because that is considering you can buy a GTX 980 desktop card for $499 today. It's a lot to ask above a 980M, right? Knowing that a 980M probably costs $200 or $300 to the OEM, and then you're adding $500 onto that. It's going to be pretty steep. Any other thoughts, Josh? You want one?
Let me change my skin color first. That's much better.
People who don't watch the video version are really
if they
confused.
tell us any more about the binning process and why these are a little bit more efficient.
I mean, do they really need to sell anything else? It's like, well, we just pick the ones that can run at lower voltages at the right clock speeds, and we just put those off to the side.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, who knows how long they've been doing that? Maybe they've been tweaking the process and the manufacturing as they go when they said, hey, look, we can actually get 10, 15 watts less consumption out of these now. Now we can put them into a mobile form factor. Let's go ahead and do that. I don't know.
They're all the chips from the middle of the wafer.
Right.
But the photoresist works much better than on the edges.
All right. Yeah. No, I think it's probably just that simple. So we should have a one of these GT72s with that GPU in it the very beginning of October. So we'll mess around with that there and see how that goes. And see if maybe I just don't send it back. Hope they're not listening. We'll see. All right, let's talk with Josh about Thrustmasters.
Because I am the thrust master.
You are the Thrustmaster TX F458 Ferrari Italia edition, stepping up the wheel game.
It is stepping up the wheel game. In the article I went through kind of my driving game experience. My very, very, very first one actually involved a wheel. It was Night Driver from Atari. It was just the twin lights, like they're off a reflector, and you drive and you got 4 shifters and you only have an accelerator. You don't have a brake. We all know how safe that is.
Right.
But yeah, I remember that as a kid, and I went through all the different stages of racing. And some years back, I got the Thrustmaster Ferrari F430 wheel, which was the first force feedback wheel that I actually had. Now, it only had 270 degrees of rotation in some of the higher end racing games. That was just not enough. You didn't have enough kind of turn to hit some hairpins as well as you were hoping, and it just kind of felt unnatural as compared to actually going out and driving a car. And so I thought, I want to see what the next level is. So I went ahead and bought this F458 Italian. It's based on the TX wheelbase, which is that big thing behind. It is an industrial class brushless motor and pulley system. So it's got 2 belts and 2 pulleys in there to do this, this 3,000 RPM motor that can be then translated into a usable force feedback steering experience instead of just a motor running and your hands getting jerked and all kinds of terrible, terrible things happening. I chose this one because it was $290, and I don't feel like spending a whole lot more. But it had a very interesting set. I mean, if you look at some of the competing Logitech ones, they have helical gears, and we've heard a few things about just the smoothness of the wheel. I mean, having them helical helps with that cog feeling, but you still get some catches, and there's some lash, and it's perhaps not the best way of doing it. I know Logitech would probably disagree with me with that, but after having used my F430, which was a geared and pulley kind of dual system, I did notice a huge amount of smoothness with this newer model. Now, this has been out a couple of years. It was released around the time the Xbox One was released. It's got 900 degrees of rotation. Again, it's dual belt and dual pulley. It's a pretty significantly heavy piece of gear. I mean, it's probably a good 10 to 15 pounds. And one of the real strengths of this wheel is that, you're familiar with the G29 and the mounting mechanism. It's the 2 little kind of hooks in the front that you've got the plastic knobs and you twist until they're tight.
Right. Yep.
And they work okay, but I mean, if you get really crazy with the wheel, they'll pop off.
Man, you gotta get real crazy.
Okay, well. Anyway, with
you drive in a more intense manner than me. It's fine.
Well,
it's okay.
Potentially. Well, I drive to win, Ryan, and you just drive to.
I drive to script everybody else.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
You go backwards.
If the game will let me. If it'll let me, yeah.
If it will let you. But anyway, the mounting mechanism on this is pretty beefy. It's a metal screw about that long, and it's attached to a swing arm. And you put that under the table and you screw it up tight, and the thing just doesn't move. You got to get really crazy with it to get it to move. The feeling is really good. And so I'd been using that F430 for a long time, many years since Dirt 2 came out. And it was a good wheel. And it could do some nice things. And it gave you, a better experience because you had some force feedback. But the difference between that and this one is night and day. You can feel a lot more subtle variations of what the force feedback is trying to do. It's not all or nothing, which sometimes the F430 kind of gave you with the way it was set up. It just was a more natural feeling type experience, and the wheel reacted more like how a real one would do. So if you're power sliding around a corner and you let go of the wheel will then turn to where the wheels on the front of the car want to go.
Right.
And I mean, that's kind of how you recover from some of these slides. Instead of, keeping the wheel cranked, you get into the slide, you let it go, and the wheels then naturally go to where the way of travel is.
Would you say the wheels go round and round?
Exactly.
round and round.
The people on the bus go round and round.
No, the people on the bus are not supposed to go round and round.
People on the bus are round.
They do when you're driving, Ryan.
Yeah, I was going to say. I mean, you're obviously not traveling on the bus that I'm driving. But,
Okay, fair enough.
yeah. Fit and finish of this is good and bad. The base itself, it's really solid. It's smooth. It feels great. The wheel that's included with it is a replica of the Ferrari F458 wheel that is included in that car. Mm-hmm. But it's not metal. It's not leather wrapped. It's got a rubberized coating. It's really lightweight, which is good for getting the wheel to spin around with the mechanism. But it doesn't have a whole lot of heft. And it doesn't feel the same as, a real steering wheel, obviously. And it feels kind of plasticky. Yeah. I mean, once you're racing, you don't notice that because you're paying more attention to what's going on, with the wheel and the force feedback. But I think that would be certainly something that would be nicer to have a wheel with, like, the G29 has a leather wrapping and probably a little bit more heft and squishy polyethylene or polypropylene kind of cushioning in there.
Nice words.
And interesting enough, Thrustmaster is offering a wheel that provides those things, but the wheel itself is $175 beyond what you're paying for this, and it's an add-in, which kind of leads us to the next point, is the base itself can be upgraded through either plugging in different pedals. It comes with a 2-pedal system out of the box. You can get the slightly upgraded 3-pedal or the Pro version, which you can mount either F1 style, where the pivot point is below your feet, or rally style or regular racing or your regular car, where the pivot point is above your feet. These all cost money. There's now 4 different wheels that you can apply to this. The standard kind of rectangular F1 wheel. You've got more of a Porsche GT style wheel that can go in there, as well as this new $599 XX Alcantara edition wheel that, again, it looks fantastic, but it's $179 or so. So if you want to buy that, that's up to you, because the system itself offers you the flexibility to do those things. So overall, my impressions of this, software, installation, the installation was very easy, but you need to follow instructions because you usually will have to update the firmware of this wheel. Otherwise, it may not work nearly as well.
Otherwise, it's a square?
What's that?
Otherwise, it's a square?
A firmware? Sure.
No.
No. It was a good one. Good try, Jeremy. But no, you don't have as many features. Force feedback may not be as well, and compatibility would be kind of touch and go without the firmware update. So it's the first thing you do out of the box. It takes a couple of minutes. You really need to read the instructions and do it correctly. Otherwise, you could be really frustrated for a while. I don't think you're going to break the wheel or overwrite something you don't need to. But if you don't do it in the way that they ask, you could get, again, frustrated.
Personal experience?
No, I actually read the instructions.
Good. That's good.
What?
It was that test in the 5th grade that says, before answering, read all the questions 1 through 16. And of course, it's like tear the page in half, poke your tensile through this, and then number 16 is like, don't do anything, just go back to 1 and write your name. Yeah.
Yes.
Those are stupid.
Classic.
Yeah. Classic education that actually became ingrained in me. But anyway, for $290, it's a pretty good buy. I think they have the TX150 or the T150. It's a brand new. It's not available yet. It's going to be shipping on the 30th. It's similar construction, but it's not. You can't interchange stuff. The base is a little less beefy than this one, but it does go the full 1080 degrees of rotation. This, again, is only 900 degrees. But overall, it's a big upgrade for me. And if you're going for more racing than you have done before and you're interested in it and you want to do it, it's not a whole lot of money because you'll likely keep this wheel for a long time. The fit and finish, while I wish it was built with different materials, is still very good. You can swap things out. The quick swap of the wheel itself is easy to understand and implement. It's not exactly quick. It takes about a minute to actually...
But that's not what you said. You just said quick swap.
Well, that's what they call it.
Don't do it while you're driving.
Exactly. You really don't
It's
want
quick,
to do that.
but not that quick.
Yeah,
Fair
yeah.
enough.
You won't make the corner. But, it's a really nice wheel. The software is great. It's got Windows 10 capabilities, goes all the way from XP to 10. So, yeah, I mean, I highly recommend it. If you've got $290 that you want to spend on a racing wheel, this is a good one. It gives you most of the performance of the higher-end wheels, like the T500. It may not, again, have the materials that one has, but the experience is much the same.
All right.
So,
Very cool.
you don't want to spend $500? Well, it's a nice...
I don't know if there are many times I
Yeah.
want to spend $500, but there are many times I'm willing to spend.
Shut up and take
Yeah.
my money.
Right. See, I don't really do that very often. Maybe. We'll see. All right, we're going to take a quick break here, guys, and thank today's podcast sponsor. It's new to me. It's new to you. We're talking, of course, about Zumper. Zumper. I don't know about you guys, but finding and applying for an apartment rental can be a nightmare. It's been a while since I've done it, but I will say when I was in school, it was indeed a nightmarish type thing. Even if you got a group of people, you're trying to find an apartment to rent, it honestly, this was a little bit before the age of like Internet 2.0, right, where we had all these cool things, but not anymore. Zumper is revolutionizing the rental industry by making it easy to find and apply for your next rental home from your iPhone or Android device. Once your custom filters are set up, including the number of bedrooms you want, monthly price, and amenities, you can get real-time updates, so you'll be the first to know when a new apartment hits the market. That's actually pretty sweet. Once you find your place, Zumper offers instant rental applications and Experian-powered credit checks, making the process super convenient and ensuring that you get to the front of the line when you apply. Zumper has over 1 million listings across the U.S., so if it's up for rent, it is on Zumper. And Ken and I actually checked this out today, and in your neighborhood, Ken, they had lots of availability,
Like
lots
20 or 30 apartments.
more than you would expect it
Yeah.
to find, right? You kind of see this type of thing, you think, oh, this is a San Francisco and a New York City type thing. I put in the Florence, Kentucky zip code, and it had just as many options, right? It was kind of surprising. It listed homes for sale, apartments, not homes for sale, homes for rent, apartments for rent, and it seemed to have a whole lot of options. I don't want to say all of them, but it had quite a bit there, which made things really convenient. To get started and to find your new home, go to zumper.com/PCP. Now, I didn't pick the URL, to be perfectly fair. Zumper, ZUMPER.com/PCP. That stands for PC Perspective, not anything else. Josh, leave it as it is. Zumper.com/PCB. And their slogan is Zumper, make your move. It's pretty good, actually. We'd like to thank Zumper for their support of the PC Perspective podcast. So, Josh, if you get kicked out of your house, you need to find an apartment, you can use that.
All three of the ones in Wyoming are listed.
I think, Josh, you muted yourself.
It was pretty funny, though, because we heard Jeremy's voice and Josh saw Josh's mouth move.
Yeah.
Yeah, not only that, but I changed color again. I got to stop browsing and just
Yeah,
leave
Pay
it on the
attention.
dark orange.
What are you browsing? It looks like a lot of flesh tones.
He's browsing.
your face.
He's browsing apartments on Zumper.
He's browsing
Exactly,
PCP.
because I'm about to be kicked out.
Fair enough. All right, let's move on and run through some news items here. Jim Keller leaves AMD again. Josh, how
Me?
big a deal is this?
I don't know, but I'm not worried in the short term. I mean, Jim Keller has a history of moving around. He's a DEC. DEC got bought up by... what are they
I
bought
don't
up
know.
by?
I have no idea.
And then they moved on to AMD. And then he left AMD right before 4X 8664 was released. It helped with some of the K8 stuff, but kind of K7 was he was a major factor in. Went to PA Micro, which was bought by Apple. Stayed at Apple for a while. Came back to AMD. Kind of helped change direction of the compute platform. Zen is certainly his baby. And, about a year before we're expecting to see some early Zen samples, he leaves under uncertain circumstances.
So when you said at the beginning of this segment that you aren't worried in the short term, you mean that in a way that Zen is done. Like the Zen, the design is done. If it's good, it's going to be good. If it's bad, it's going to be bad. Nothing will dramatically change the shape of that product, whether or not he's here for the next 8 months up to its release or not. Right?
Yeah, I mean they're already working on Zen Plus with design groups. So within the next 3 to 6 years, it's all going to be based on that architecture, and that's going to be fine. I mean, they're just going to iterate off of it. It's going to be good.
Do you think part of me believes that him leaving is a bad sign for what the resulting architecture and product will be? That if it was something he was super proud of, he would want to be there for its release. He would want to kind of bring that baby out into the world to show it off. And the fact that he's kind of leaving and getting out of the way maybe tells me that it's not the case. Do you think that's likely or unlikely? Or
that could be 50-50 in there. It could be that he's made a lot of money. He's worked a lot of hours and given up a lot of his soul to get this product out, and perhaps his work is done and he's going to go and enjoy, a couple of years of his life with what he's made, because he's not making peanuts. The executive compensation at AMD is still really good, and he's made some good money throughout his entire career.
I don't think that there's a money issue at all, right? Like I think if you wanted to retire and go off and be a crazy person somewhere, you could do that.
Look at a picture of him in 2012, and then look at one of the latest pictures of him. Sure, he's doing the robot in that one, but he's only got one chin. And he's got some good musculature there. And you look in later ones, and he's gained a lot of weight. He looks kind of ragged and tired. And I think that he's spent a lot of energy and time in his life trying to get this product out. And maybe after all the design work is done, and now it's just a lot of managerial crap, and things are in the pipeline. They're just getting the work done and getting the designs and things are in a pipeline for the next couple of years. Maybe he just said, you know what, I'm 50 some odd years old. I've got a lot of money in the bank. Maybe I want to spend some time with my family or kids. If you have,
why the hell would you want to do that?
If I had the choice.
I mean, okay, so we don't need to dwell on this anymore. We don't know what it means. All I know for sure that it means is like whatever comes after is already kind of designed and in the bank may not be as good. You say in this article that hey, maybe this is time for somebody else who's really good to step up, and they can become the next face of a terrific architecture and processor design, and maybe that'll happen.
But think of it this way:
all we know is he's
a
not
rock star designer.
Yeah.
And he gets a rock star salary.
Oh, yeah.
And as he goes and they're trying to keep the boat afloat, they can distribute that salary to a bunch of other engineers who may be as good as him, but just don't have the experience, don't have the seniority, and be able to keep them on and keep that momentum going.
Yeah, I think maybe if you're AMD, that's something you have to do. It's a dangerous position to continue to take long term, right? Like, it's hard to get good talent in if you just kind of kick them out of the way when their job is done before the next job starts. But if you look, they just recently promoted Raja and kept him on and all that stuff. So I don't feel like the company is trying to do that. So maybe this was his decision. He wanted to do other stuff, and we'll leave it at that, I guess.
Yeah, I guess in 6 years we'll find out.
Yeah. Another interesting thing and potentially bad news, for people is apparently 30,000 employees are going to be let go if this HP split actually occurs.
It's gonna.
Oh, you think what is this, Jeremy? What am I looking at here?
Well, so HP has always had a very schizophrenic business model where there's the consumers who buy HP laptops because they're cool, and the enterprise customers that buy Hewlett-Packard because they've been around for forever. So they kind of figured, we're not doing so well against some of our competition like Lenovo, like Dell, more so on the enterprise side than the consumer side, but still they were seeing problems on the consumer side. So they were going to originally cut somewhere around 3,000 people or so, or sorry, about 5,000, which is the usual corporate adjustment, or otherwise known as decimation. 1 in 10 is now gone. It's actually looking like that number, and this is on top of just over 50,000 that they've already lost when this was first announced and they started the restructuring. So now you're looking at 30, 40. You're getting the better part of 100,000 people are going to be let go because of this, which is just going to hurt a lot of people overall, and it's going to make HP a very different company. I don't know if they're going to try and keep mostly enterprise and just bare bones the consumer, because you can sort of do that to an extent, especially if you, as some other companies have done, just provide crap support and warranty for your consumer people and baby your enterprise guys. But if it'll work for them, maybe they can make a bit of a comeback, because honestly, I haven't seen HP kit that was really impressive, at least to me in the enterprise or as a consumer, in quite a while. So they're going to have to make some major changes. I don't know if it's getting rid of 90, 100,000 people, but, well, that's what they're doing.
That's a big change. Like, if you want to shake things up, that's certainly a way to do it. So we feel for those guys, and
Hey,
I don't know. Yeah,
you're right. Part of the HP split also has to do with their government business. I have a friend of mine who works for them, the old EDS arm that they swallowed up. Supposedly the split is also to split out the government business from the rest of the business as well. The government business being the contracting services, some top secret stuff, some not. So
right.
That's along with it. And they may be shopping one of the other split off companies to, for a potential buyer or whatever. Because those service companies, when they pick them up, they say, "Oh, it's great. It's great because it's making money. We can make more money." And then they get into it and they're like, "Well, it didn't work out so well, so let's sell it off." That's life at a big company. I mean, the company I work for does the same thing. But these type of things are years in the making. It's not like they buy it last year and they sell it this year or something.
Everyone thinks they can make money off of support, and then they do it and find out, no, it doesn't pay for shit.
Except IBM somehow.
Yeah, because they don't have any products. They just offer support.
Nice.
Buy our software. It's cheap.
Let's talk about something more exciting and less depressing. How about Star Wars Battlefront? Apparently, according to this story by Scott, the Battlefront beta will be open to everyone. It will be a public beta. It will take place in, quote, early October. Contain 3 game modes, each of the 2 known ones with a single map, and the third one unknown to be Drop Zone, apparently, to come with its own map, but it could technically reuse Hoth or Tatooine. If you're not a fan of online gaming, EA is supporting single-player survival mode. It will apparently require an internet connection, but it's unclear whether you need to have it active to play in the offline mode. Squadron Fighter mode will not be available in the beta, but Walker Assault has a bit of aircraft play, so you should get a taste of the controls if you can ever find an available vehicle, which I 100% agree with. And the 3 or 4 hours I played of the alpha, I guess, or I guess it was still considered an alpha, never once got into a speeder.
Well, because
speeder,
I'm a pilot and I'm going to camp by the speeders, right. And if you get into it, I'm going to blow it up. Lol.
And I'm going to turn around backwards on the racetrack and run into people.
There you have it.
EA also mentioned the Star Wars Battlefront companion app. It will not be some kind of commander mode. It will apparently have a card game and social component. It will be available during the beta as a website, but the iOS and Android apps will be prior to the release of Battlefront.
That's exactly what I want.
That is still coming. It's sooner than we think, like just over 2 months, November 17th for the full release, and then the beta in early October. And then, Jeremy, Was there more information on the Battlefront news as well?
Sort of a little bit more. There was a statement which EA put out, which everyone figured they were going to save for a surprise at the very end, just before release, where, well, you know, we're not going to have a server browser, but we're going to have some sort of matching thing.
Right.
Okay, skill-based matching is pretty common nowadays. Rocket League is a perfect example of that. Many others are doing the same sort of thing, but one of the things that scared the hell out of people is, what if I want a dedicated server? What if I just want to play with my friends?
Sure.
What if one of them really likes driving backwards into people and I just like watching it?
It's a fair question.
Because
right?
you like to watch the world burn.
These are the things that need to be asked. Right?
Absolutely. So their representative did say, yes, dedicated servers will still be available. Of course, with no server browser, we're not quite sure how that's going to work in, if there's going to be a join by direct IP, if find your friends sort of a thing.
Wouldn't that be great
Console
if they just went right all back to console commands? Like, look, we don't have the time to make a browser for servers. That's crazy talk.
Just hit tilde and type in the IP.
Tilde, join IP, port, done. Ready
It'll
to go.
cut down on the console gamers I get to kill, though.
Yeah, that's true.
It is a bitch to hit the tilde key on a PS4
Did they
controller.
say they were going to do cross-play on this? Console versus
Yeah,
PC?
well, they say they will.
They've been
and
saying that for ages.
Well, Fable Legends... Can I say this yet? I'll wait till tomorrow.
Yeah, you can.
I can. Fable Legends will be a cross-play game.
Yeah. It was in that video we watched. On
Oh,
YouTube.
okay. Yeah. Like, Fable Legends game, Microsoft's coming out. It's going to be on Windows 10 Store and Xbox One. It's doing crossplay, so, like, there's one. But Microsoft tried
It's
that
not a
before
first-person
with...
shooter, though.
It's not a first-person shooter, right? Where the advantage of mouse keyboard over controller is dramatic.
So sweet.
because there are a couple out there where you do see that, and like there'll be an asterisk beside the guy's name, and it's like, oh, aim for him because he's on a controller. He ain't gonna be able to hit shit.
Very true. I'm excited about Battlefront. I want it to be good. I don't want it to be EA-ified too much. But we'll see.
Yeah, well,
We'll see. Alan's not here, so he actually posted a review of this Enterprise SSD. We're not going to cover that this week. We're going to wait till next week when he's back in town to talk about it because he went through this whole new testing methodology that I don't really understand, so I'm going to have him explain it all for us. In the meantime, though, there are a couple of things I do want to cover from the event that he is actually at in Korea. Samsung's having their kind of annual SSD storage event over there. And the big thing that they announced was the 950 Pro, which is a M.2 PCI Express NVMe SSD using V-NAND, up to rated at 300,000 IOPS and 2.5 gigabytes per second in that form factor. Is this the second NVMe drive that we know of? Right?
From Samsung?
Just period. Well, so okay, we have the Intel SSD 750 series, which was kind of the first kind of consumer released branded NVMe drive, and it was an add-in card or the U.2 form factor. Samsung
And wasn't
had
that Samsung? They sent that one not accidentally, but Intel sent you the one in the bricks.
yeah, so they sent
That
one
was
in the
NVMe?
bricks. Yeah, and they had used those in notebooks for a little while as well, but it was like they weren't marketing it, they weren't advertising
It's an
it.
OEM only
It was an
part.
OEM only part, right? And so they never really sold. Like when we
You
did
can
the story,
find them on Amazon and stuff sometimes.
yeah, every once in a while you could find it, but it was really hard to do. Like, so this is a part that's going to be widely available. It's got a brand. It's going to be in box. It's going to ship, right? This is an M.2 2280 form factor product running PCIe 3.0 by 4. Right, that's how you can get up that 2.5 gigabytes performance. It's got 32-layer V-NAND, and it uses NVMe protocol enabled by the new UBX Samsung controller. It would be capable of 300,000 random read IOPS and random writes at 110,000 IOPS. Sequential throughputs are expected to be 2.5 gigs for reads, wrong way, and 1.5 gigs for writes. Available capacities will be 256 and 512 at launch, but I think they said later, or they do say here, 1 terabyte early next year, when they actually go to a 48-layer V-NAND. Now, keep in mind that the reason for that capacity constraint is like physical space on the M.2 board.
And I think they're only using the front side of the board. I think I saw Alan say there aren't actually components on the back.
Oh, really?
So that
I wonder if
it's
there's
only
a
like
form
two
factor.
packages.
Yeah, I wonder if there's a form factor concern, like for some spacing. Like we've seen mini ITX boards like that MSI Z170 board that has M.2 on the back.
Yeah.
Perfect. But you have to be very critical about space, and then you have to worry about heat and all that other stuff that goes along with that as well. So these will hit retail in October. Alan has his samples. We just got to wait for him to get back and actually run the tests and figure out whenever the NDA is. So that's pretty cool. Pricing, 68 cents a gig for the 512 gig model. So 512 gig drive for $349. That's not it's not like 850 pricing, but it's not Intel SSD 750 pricing either. It's kind of like right between those. I'm wondering where do the 850 Pro price per gig kind of sits right now, like the SATA based 850 Pro.
That's about the 850 Pro.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm impressed here with the. Let me look this up. 850 Pro 512 gig on Amazon is. It's come down quite a bit. 850 Pro on Amazon is $231 for the 512 gig model. So that's actually significantly less. But that's kind of where it started at, right? So not a budget play here. You know, I don't know any of this. Alan hasn't said anything of this, but you assume if there's a 950 Pro, there will be a 950, maybe a 950 Evo using TLC V-NAND. You know, those will be the lower cost options, slightly lower performance. And I'll be curious to see how. It's always been interesting, right? Because the 850 Evo and 850 Pro, they have slightly different performance, but because it's SATA, it's like it kind of doesn't matter. Now that it's PCIe and NVMe, I think it will matter.
Ryan, what they may do is if they come out with the 950, just the 950 Evo, I mean, they may not make that a PCIe X4 thing, because all of the PCIe X4 drives I've seen aimed at M.2 form factor are premium drives. So they may choose to leave that at a premium to try to make money off of it, and the Evo may only be either just a regular SSD one or only an X2.
True.
They may choose to cripple it.
We shall see.
It's very true. In other news, Samsung did announce branding and future SSD capacity expansion to the 48-layer V-NAND stuff. So it's a little weird, right? Obscured by the 950 Pro launch, new branding for their V-NAND technology. The new branding is more in line with what folks were calling their NAND anyway. And apparently they're actually going to say V-NAND SSD 850 Evo, for example, on the box, right? Whether or not that's a positive or negative, I really can't say. I don't know how I really feel about that. But what they did talk about were announcements of upcoming higher capacities for the existing models. How about a 4 terabyte 850 Evo SATA drive? Or a 1 terabyte 850 Evo M.2? That sounds pretty good, right? 2.5-inch 4 terabyte SSD.
It's bigger than any hard drive I own.
Yeah. And a 2.5-inch form factor, right? We were just talking about like what's that Drobo Mini that has 4 2.5-inch drive slots.
Yeah.
Boom, put in 4 of those. Run RAID 0. Wait, no, don't do that. And then transfer over USB 3.0 or Thunderbolt. Don't do that. How is all this expansion possible? The answer is the 3rd generation V-NAND, which is 48 layers and 256 gigabit capacity per die, which is 32 gigabytes per die. 32 gigabytes per die. Samsung says they're going to roll this flash out and update all model lines currently using V-NAND. Let's see. So we'll talk with Alan about this next week, but I'm sure their worry is if they say they're going to replace the current lineup with that currently uses 32 nanometer, right? And they replace it with 48 nanometer. Are they kind of doing this kind of swap on the fly? Will it affect performance? Will it affect longevity? Samsung is trying to prevent confusion by adding the product lines with additional specs. They also promise that they will only implement this change in a way that will increase performance and decrease power consumption of the product, so that they won't run into any kind of issues that I don't know, that Kingston or somebody that had the PNY that like swapped flash on it and caused a big issue there. So we'll talk more about all that stuff next week. But Samsung keeping the SSD world on its toes. So good for them. Good for them. A couple more things real quick here. ASUS announces Transformer book lineup, including the T100HA and the TP200SA. These are both convertible tablets and 2-in-1 tablets. The T100 is a Cherry Trail, Intel Atom Cherry Trail X5 Z85 processor, which is an improvement over the Bay Trail. You can see here it's the what we know of as the ASUS 2-in-1 kind of convertible tablet. It is a magnetic connector there rather than a latch connector, which is nice. I saw one of those actually at IDF. So that's pretty good. Quad-core Cherry Trail processor, 10.1-inch screen, 4 gigs of RAM, 64 gigs of eMMC. You know, your kind of typical low-cost machine. And then up next is the Transformer Book Flip TP200SA. It's an 11-inch 2-in-1 that kind of does the wraparound screen to turn it into a tablet. This has a quad-core Celeron Braswell processor, the N3050. 11.6, 1366 by 768 IPS panel. Nice screen. 4 gigs of RAM, 64 gigs of eMMC. USB 3.0 support, which is nice. Type-C USB 3.1 Gen 1, which basically means what, Ken?
Like USB 3.0 speeds.
It's just USB 3.0 speeds, Type-C connector. Here's the secret, everybody. Well, that T100 is going to be $299, and the TP200SA is going to be $349. So very low-cost machines. That's actually what this machine is here, the TP200SA. I'm using it right now. I am using that Type-C adapter for a Gigabit Ethernet connection. Yeah, I don't want to lift it up because I got cables and stuff.
So impressed.
Yeah, see?
Yeah.
That's a pretty good viewing angle, actually. See that on the screen?
Yeah.
That's pretty good, actually. So that's what's been running this. It's not a high-performance machine. You know, I've got 20 tabs open in Chrome, and it's feeling it, right? Like it's
You
feeling
probably
it.
shouldn't have 20 tabs open on this
You
machine.
probably shouldn't have 20 tabs open. I completely agree with that sentiment. It's a 2.65-pound notebook. Nothing here, quote, on battery life, but that's something I'm very curious about because it is such a thin and light machine, whether or not it lives up to any kind of reasonable battery life expectation. So obviously we'll have a review up in the not-too-distant future of the TP200SA, so pay attention to that. And then lastly, real quick, Google is apparently going to host a press briefing on September 29th for new Android phones. We know anything about these, Ken? I don't know if you read anything. The Nexus 5X, Nexus 6P, which are both not great names. 5X is fine. 6P is not great.
It's not the best.
It's not the best.
6P is supposed to be the
Bring your
Huawei.
sticks in a campfire because they'll be roasted marshmallows.
Yeah, there you go.
So I'm not going to talk anything more on that. Also, I will say as a complete side note here, for the first time since the iPhone 3G, that's right.
Yeah.
I bought an iPhone, and I'm thinking about it, and I'll run this by everybody here on the show. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make myself only use that phone as like my primary phone. I think I could do that. Can I put my Verizon SIM in it? I bought a T-Mobile iPhone 6S. If I have to use T-Mobile service, that's fine. I'll do it.
That'll work,
I would like to
actually.
just use my Verizon stuff. But use it for 30 days and like kind of not every day write a blog about like day 1, day 2, day 3, day 7, day 10. And
Oh man, you can vlog.
Day 30, I'm already standing in line for iPhone 7.
I could vlog with the 4K camera. I could just walk around. It does actually make me ill when I watch them. When you have somebody like rotating as they hold the camera out here, it's not good. I don't know why anybody ever thought that was a good idea. So yeah, I bought a 6S. It'll be here on Friday. Ken obviously bought a 6S and he'll have it on Friday. But it had been a long time, and I think it's worth giving it a shot again. I really am just really excited about 3D Touch. I just want to push on the screen real hard. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it'll be interesting as somebody who has used Android exclusively for.
And WebOS.
Okay, so I that's true. I went from the iPhone 3G to WebOS to Android, which obviously WebOS didn't last very long. But so I've been on
I left
Android
some
for
really
a while.
nice pictures on your BlackBerry, by the way.
Oh, yes,
Since you let me borrow that.
I did. Yeah. Did you ever give that back to me? Did I get that back?
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
You say that in a way that I
lots
don't
of good
believe
stuff
you.
on there. Lots of good content.
So I'll be curious. Like, here's my Droid Turbo, and I just recently got a OnePlus 2 in as well. Put them to the side. focus on 6S or 6S Plus, whichever one shows up. We'll see. So that's pretty much it, guys. Let's get into our hardware software picks of the week. Mine is that very adapter that I just mentioned. This is the Kanex. Is that what we're going to go with?
Yeah.
Kanex adapter. Oop, there it is. Oh, hard to see. Lots of glare. This is a USB Type-C Gigabit Ethernet adapter. Now, very convenient for us here because this had a USB Type-C connection on this ASUS laptop. You know, useful for, I guess, the new Macs
Yeah.
that have Type-C on it.
I think we'll see a lot of Ultrabooks with Type-C connectors in the next couple months.
Agreed.
That don't have
And
Ethernet.
this is, I will say, and this is running Windows 10. I just plugged it in and it worked immediately. Didn't have to download a driver, install a driver, which is always nice. Kanex USB-C to Gigabit Ethernet adapter. It's $22 on Amazon. That's actually pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty good for a USB Ethernet adapter.
Pretty good.
Compared to like what I paid for a 3.0 one. That's about right.
I like its features here. It enables immediate internet connectivity to your new MacBook or PC. Plug and play, no driver installation required. Helps avoid Wi-Fi dead spots because it doesn't use Wi-Fi.
It's a cord.
Yeah.
Like the single best thing I bought for my MacBook was the Thunderbolt to Gigabit adapter.
Yeah.
Because like I just keep it in my bag and I use it. It's paid.
Agreed.
It's paid for itself. I use
Compatibility.
it.
It says new MacBook, Chromebook, Pixel. They should also add ASUS TP200 SA to that list because it worked perfectly and it's been working perfectly on this device as well.
Plug it in the back of your new Z170 motherboard for some reason.
Yeah, right. I need 3 Gigabit Ethernet ports on that as well. So who's up next? We got Jeremy. What do you got for me?
Oh, EA's decided to buck the trend and actually fix something.
What?
Yeah, it's shocking to me as well. But if you've already infected your machine with Origin, for the various reasons that we choose to do so, the on-the-house deal has finally been fixed. If you didn't get Command & Conquer Red Alert 2 and Yuri's Revenge before it died last week, you can get them now. Add them to your list of games that you've never actually played, but really mean to.
Sad for me is I get an email about whatever game is free from Origin because, right, obviously we have an Origin account. And I'm too lazy or distracted to go to a machine that has Origin, to start it up, to click the yes
to
button.
Update it.
How do I, yeah,
to log back in.
Log back in, click yes, I would like to buy that. No, don't download it. Maybe one day in the future. It won't happen. I'll play the game when I want to. I do the same thing with PSN, right? Like I see all the emails about what games are free on the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 3 and the Vita.
Xbox Live does that now.
And Xbox Live does that now too. And I just like I should be collecting in these free games. I have so many games I don't play as it is that this doesn't, I guess, bother me that much.
Doesn't make you too sad.
Do you have a lot of good memories of Red Alert 2, Jeremy?
More or less. That was back in the good old days when the RTSs were a little more simple.
Yeah.
And also much better thought out and balanced. And hell, there's even a story with it.
Is there full motion video in Red Alert 2?
Yeah.
There's
Sort of. I mean, it's not going to be FMV for anybody born after the 80s, but, you know.
Well, you know.
Everybody's got to have goals in life.
Yeah.
All right, Josh.
Me.
You are next.
Okay, apparently this is coming out at the end of the month. I had mentioned this before. It's a $199 force feedback wheel. If I were starting out in games and racing, the T150 would be a really good product. I mean, it's got 180 degrees rotation. It's a solid force feedback. It's only 2-pedal. It's got the paddle shifters, but you know what? It's not out of most people's price range. It's not a $76 force feedback wheel, but it probably feels a whole lot better than a $76 force feedback wheel.
Right.
Yeah.
Probably.
And it's blue.
It does blue. Got that giant PlayStation logo right in the middle of it, too.
Yeah. Which sucks with your playing on the PC, but
yeah. Such
hey,
is life.
$199.
Such is life.
What
All
would
right.
Johnny Shee say about it?
Probably nothing.
No.
You'd probably call it $200.
More, he'd be like, it's about $200.
Yeah.
Maury, what do you got?
And he'd say that really monotonously. Yeah, it's around 200.
Yeah, it's like $200 or something.
This is Johnny Shee signing off.
See you guys. Maury, what do you got?
Mine's a little cheaper than $200. I recently when we started with the Z170 reviews, the USB 3.1 stuff started to hit hard and heavy. So I started looking into getting a USB 3.1 enclosure. Found, well, if Ken will put the picture up, found this one at Fry's. Now, the price on the website, this is a Hornitech website, so, it's going to show the retail price. But you can probably, I picked it up at Fry's for it was like $20 on sale. You probably get it for $25. It's a really nice unit. It supports USB 2.0, 3.0, 3.1, 3.1 Gen 1, Gen 2. It also comes with an adapter that will convert from the regular size USB to the Type A connector, which is the mini switchable USB 3.1 Gen 2 connector. Now, let me just throw something out there too. With this thing, the basically USB 3.1 kind of muddied the waters, right? Mm-hmm. USB 3.1 and 3.1 Gen 1 is the 5 gigabyte per second one, and now they're using that with USB 3.0 interchangeably. For it to be USB 3.1 Gen 2, which is the one you want, the 10 gigabit per second, it has to say Gen 2. Okay, if it says Gen 1, it's going to be the old USB 3.0. They just kind of, I don't know why they did that. And the only difference between the regular 3.1 Gen 2 and the regular USB 3.1 Gen 2 is referred to as Type A. That's the full-size connector. The smaller connector that you can flip either way is called Type C. Okay, correct. That enclosure supports both of them. It supports all that stuff. The nice thing with the enclosure is I was, in testing, it's as fast as with an SSD. I was using, I think, a Vertex 460 SSD in it, mm-hmm. and I got the same speeds as I did on with the drive connected to a SATA drive, a SATA port on the motherboard. So, there is no speed degradation. I believe the enclosure uses an AS Media chipset on it, so there's been some things that there might be incompatibilities between the AS Media and other chipsets, so just keep that in mind. But on most motherboards, it works stellarly, and even for that's only for the USB 3.1 Gen 2. The USB 3.0 / Gen 1 stuff works fine no matter what. So.
Very cool. That is indeed much less than $200, by the way, as well. So people appreciate that. That's going to be it for tonight's episode, guys. I will say, if you're watching live and you're interested in DirectX 12 game performance, check PCPer.com tomorrow morning. We can't talk about it yet, but if you check back tomorrow morning, we'll have a new story and a couple videos up on that.
It's a surprise announcement of DirectX 13.
It is. Yep, it's finally here. We're finally ready to do that thing that DirectX 13 is going to do. This would be great. That's it for everybody. Like I said, PCPer.com/podcasts, where you can find all the back episodes. You can find the RSS feeds, the MP3 downloads, the SoundCloud embeds, the YouTube videos. All that stuff is there at PCPer.com/podcast. Please share the podcast with anybody that you think might be interested. We need growing the audience. We don't put out ads. We are all through word of mouth. So if you want to post us on Reddit or on your favorite forum or whatever, we would really appreciate it there. And then PCPer.com/live. Again, if you want to watch us record the show live, Wednesdays, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. And then PCPer.com/subscribe if you want to sign up for that little mailing list where we will tell you about our upcoming live events. With that, we will see you next week, everybody. I'm Ryan Shrout.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
And I'm Morry Titleman.
Good night.